All right, so let's now take you over to our M1 studios. That's in the Radio Park here at the SABC, where Sakina is standing by with her guests. Sakina, good morning to you and your guests again.
Well, a very good morning from our M1 studios here at SABC. And of course, it's that time of the year again. It's Women's Month in South Africa, all of August. And this that you're watching right now has become a bit of an institution. We do it annually now here on Morning Live. And that is our very powerful Women's Month discussion. And we assemble the best panels that you can think of to come and talk to us about some of the issues that women face. So, and that's what we will be spotlighting this morning. And the women that we'll be speaking to have broken barriers. They are leading in boardrooms, institutions, and of course, they've walked quite a path to get to where they are. And we'll be engaging them this morning. And don't forget, you can get in on the conversation as well. You can either send us a message via a WhatsApp, or you can also send us a message on our X platform at Morning Live SABC. And thanks to McDonald's for always walking this path with us. And it's that sort of generosity that makes all of this possible, along, of course, with the fabulous support of SABC News. So here we go on the 2025 edition of the Morning Live Women's Month panel discussion. So our cast that we've assembled for you this morning: Shamim Mansoor to my immediate right, and Shamim is the Chief Executive Officer at Mantengu Ltd. And with 2 decades of experience in finance and investment, she's at the forefront of course, driving strategic growth and transformation. And next to Shamim, we have Queen Munyai, and Queen is the CEO of the Consumer Goods and Service Ombud, and she's a fierce advocate for accountability and transparency in how businesses serve consumers. Also with us this morning, we have Laureate Sissoko, who is the General Executive for Commercial and Business Development at Airports Company South Africa, AXA. And Laureate is reshaping how we think about infrastructure, commerce, and of course, women in aviation. And finally, we have Professor Inga Fabrice-Rotelli, who is Associate Professor of Statistics at the University of Pretoria, a respected scholar, a mentor, and a STEM advocate. She's helping grow the next generation of female academics. So there you have it, our stellar panel this morning. Ladies, thank you so much for coming through. So let's just start by talking about the space that you are navigating. Investment and you know, when we think of that, all of you, in fact, are in spaces that are so male-dominated still. And how have you found your journey to the top, Shamim?
I think it's a tough journey. When I started, so I'm in the mining space, and when I started in mining here in South Africa, I was the first female in mining. I was then headhunted to move to London, and again, I was the first female in mining in the UK and Europe. So mining is all male dominated. It's still very male dominated. So you've got to work so much harder to prove who you are, to prove your worth, that you know as much as they do, and you don't get any chances in the sense that you've got to work harder than them to achieve the same. So it's been, I would say, a very tough journey, but you've got to learn to break down those barriers, like you say, and go out there and do what other people say you can't do, and prove to them that I am more worthy, or as worthy, more worthy than my male counterparts. And in my case, I did it because I worked 10 times harder, and I got rated ahead of my peers who were all male, geologists, mining engineers, and I came from a finance background, yet I was rated higher than them. So, yeah.
And Queen, your journey, again, you know, how difficult was it for you to get there? Because sometimes we see people at the top and we assume, you know, it must have been pretty straightforward getting there.
Absolutely. For me, I think, interestingly, it was not as straightforward as perhaps one would imagine. Having started as a data capturer in a bank some many years ago, So for me, I think when I look back at the journey, it's the fact of not despising the small beginnings. So doing your best in every role that you are in. And for me, I never even imagined that I was not aspiring that one day I want to become a CEO. I was just doing my best at every level and being present, making sure that I'm learning at every role that I get. I then grew, became a teller, and in the banking space, kind of exhausting all the positions there in terms of customer consulting and all that. But later on moved into consulting, business consulting. And then I think my journey kind of changed when I joined the Consumer Goods Council of South Africa in 2013 as a compliance officer. And that's where I think my love for advocating for consumer rights started when in 2013 they were launching the Office of the Ombudsman, and I was seconded to go and help set up. They had just appointed the new ombudsman, but the office had to be started from scratch. So I was seconded to go and work and help him with my business acumen to help set up the office. So I was just there to go and do what I was told to do and go back to my role. So I think later on in the same year in November, I had an invitation to want to jump ship and take on the role there as a general manager, which I did. And I think from there, I realized that there's so much that is happening in that space. The role that the Ombud is going to play, it's going to affect women and everyone in the sector, despite of where they come from, whether from rural or elite, you are a consumer. So I fell in love with that. But it took a lot of mentorship. It took other people advocating and coaching. So that is why I'm very much passionate about mentorship, because I realized that when you step into a role like that, you don't necessarily know exactly what to do next. So you do need a mentor. I think everybody does need a mentor.
Laureate Sissoko, and you are at that sort of interface where people literally come into contact with what you do.
Yes, thank you, Sakina, for giving me an opportunity and inviting me to the studio. Literally, my entire career has been in transport and logistics, but my technical training was in finance and auditing, and that was my intention to follow that route. But because of my nature, because of my character, the person who's very energetic, results-oriented, I shifted to business management, strategy, marketing, customer relations, and I started saving my articles, actually. But after my articles, I decided, I'm going to pursue my studies with MBAs, and I started in transport and logistics. I started in rail. I was at Metro Rail when it was still within Transnet, and then we transferred to Plaza. Then I went back to Transnet in maritime space. I spent almost half of my career in shipping and maritime. And then I left Transnet, and then I went to, obviously I got this opportunity from aviation now. So you can literally see, like within the transport and logistics, I covered all of them. And I always say to people, the only area that I did not cover within my career is the trucking space, which is also male dominated. But I must say, within the past few decades, the narrative has changed. And I was fortunate to work in state-owned enterprises, where we had some entrenched culture of supporting women. And since I joined the state-owned enterprises, I can tell you at AXA, as we speak now, where I am, you will see from the top leadership, even starting from our minister, we have a woman minister. You go to the chairperson of the board acting is a woman. You go to my CE is a woman. And then you look at the executive team, like of AXA. We are just over 50% above female. When I entered, we were just below, but we're now just over 50%, you know, women leaders in that organization. So I think the focus is starting, especially for progressive, inclusive companies like AXA. The focus is starting to put women in positions that are of power, where you are able to make decisions, where you are empowered, you are given the delegation, you are given the space to prove yourself, rather than traditional, you know, like supportive roles in the past. And that is what we see happening now, not just in AXA, but most companies are starting to be progressive. And I think it depends. Those companies that are lagging behind in terms of empowering women, you know, they need to do some policy reforms, they need to entrench cultures of women's support, and there are challenges, obviously, and you know, and I think we'll touch on the challenges as we move along.
And I look forward to that, because it immediately raises the question whether there's a difference in how this plays out in the public versus the private sector as well. Professor, you know, over to you. You in that space where you also get to interact with young minds, ambitious minds as well.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This is a really lovely opportunity. Yeah, so my wonderful women colleagues here, it's so inspiring to listen to them. And for sure, I think the common thread is that no one just fell into these high positions. Everyone worked really hard. And I think it's the same in academia. And academia is a really wonderful environment. I think especially for a woman, we have a lot of freedom, but you don't get anywhere if you don't work hard. The STEM environment is obviously also very male-dominated in South Africa and internationally. I actually studied mathematics and then sort of majored in maths and statistics, and I ended up in our statistics department. And you only climb because you work hard. Very interestingly, in our statistics community in South Africa, we have a very female-dominated statistics community. And I've been thinking about it over the last few years. I was recently the president of the South African Statistical Association, so I'm very in touch with our community. And there's so many women that came into statistics, and it means that there's these women mentors that are visible to our students, our undergrads, our postgrads. And because of that, more women are going into statistics in industry as well as in academia. And I think that visibility of women is what works. That's what makes it more women in power. So I'm very, very blessed to be in a field that I love, but hard work is how we get there.
And I think that's very interesting how each of you have basically outlined your climb to the top, because for many young women, especially today, let's face it, the mindset is very different from when some of us were growing up. People feel they get to learn whatever it is that they are interested in. They get educated, they get certificated, and they want to immediately be Shamim, they want to be Queen, they want to be where laureates is and where you are, Prof. And these are some of the realities that we have to face. But how transformative has this particular era been for women in the true sense, you know, looking at where we came from and what we're dealing with right now? How transformative has this era been for you?
I think there's been definitely a shift in the mindset. People or corporates on the private sector are more open to, you know, women being in these high positions and entering, for example, mining. But I still think there is a long way to go. And when we take mining in particular, there's bodies around the world, you know, women in mining in every country, etc. But I did an interview earlier this year about this. It's all well and good saying, oh, we've got so many women in mining, but those women in mining, majority of them are in back office roles, which are traditionally female, HR, finance, etc. Why are we not focusing on the fact that still today there are so few in the front office, the ones like me going underground, you know, doing the deals, that sort of thing. So you know, I think women are doing ourselves a disservice by promoting, oh, there's so many women in mining, look at us, we're doing so many big things, when in reality, we're not. Those women are still in those traditional female roles that you will find in every single industry. Focus on the people in the front office, the frontline people, you know, mining in geologists, engineers, people like myself, you know, board positions, doing acquisitions, doing deals at that forefront of mining.
I'm going to take a break on that note, because I think that sets us up nicely for where we're going next with this conversation, in terms of once you get there, what do you actually do as a woman leader? And also, what are the expectations that we have of women in leadership positions vis-a-vis what we expect of men? Let's take a quick break. And welcome back. You're watching our annual Morning Live Women's Month panel discussion. And in case you just joined us right now, let me quickly reintroduce our panel to you. We have Shamim Mansour, and she is sitting next to Queen Munyai. And then we have Laureate Sissoko, and then we have Professor Fabrice Rotelli with us this morning. So that's our panel. And we had just teed it off to get into a very interesting discussion now about what actually happens when you get to the top. And perhaps just in 2 seconds, rephrase for us where you left us, Shamim.
I think what I was saying is that when you get to, in the space of mining, which is male dominated, there's a lot of celebration by women themselves, saying now in this new era, there's so many women in mining. But the reality is those women are in the back office in the traditional female roles of HR and finance. They are not in the front office like the geologists or the mining engineers or the deal makers, the CEOs.
So what really are we celebrating when we talk about women who've broken through the glass ceiling, the proverbial glass ceiling? Are they really making it into the powerful top positions in these organizations? Queen, let's hear you.
So I think mine is similar to what she's saying, that, you know, we are in a transition wherein you come in, it looks like the system is shocked that you are there, because traditionally women are seen to be in supportive roles at the background, but not in the decision making. So now we've entered this position, you are in a boardroom sitting there. It's not as rosy as it looks from outside, because even it's not, the shock is not only in the outside, it's also in the boardroom itself, that you feel as though there is somebody that is waiting to hear whether will she make it. So there is fear, there is a lot of voices talking.
Are you worthy of being there?
Worthy of that seat? Then you're going to have to constantly prove yourself. You have to work 2 times harder than your counterparts who are in the same position. So it's a mixture. So you are there now trying to bridge the gap of now making way for the next generation. But the important thing is that you are now bringing hope to those that are in the supportive roles, that are in the lower levels, to say that it is possible.
But is it real hope? Is it real hope? Because you just said it's not easy there. Laureate, if I can come to you, do you share that sentiment that it's not easy at the top?
Yes, I do. I think the expectations is that you need to really work hard. You need to be dedicated. But I also think it's almost like a hybrid. The same is also expected on your male counterpart as well. And I was fortunate, actually, I did mention that 90% of my career have been in state-owned enterprises. The culture is embedding the transformation of equal treatment, equal expectations, and at some point in your career, whether you are a female or a male, you will be expected to exert twice as effort of your expertise. You will be expected to produce the same results. You sign the same performance contract. There's no equal treatment. Actually, I don't prefer or expect, to be treated with kids' laughs. you know, for me to really.
But do you have real power once you get there? Are you actually the ultimate decision maker?
Not necessarily the ultimate, but your input, your contributions, how you exert yourself, how you influence, you know, how you prepare, you know, for those meetings, when there are meetings, how you do research, data analysis, you know, how to present yourself in a strategic manner aligned with your corporate objectives, advancing your organization interests is very important. And I think organizations, progressive ones, like the one I'm working for, in inclusive ones, they do provide tools, they do provide training and development, but most of us, you know, we don't utilize, we don't reach out. You know, you wait to be called, but they are there. There's awareness, there's education, there's communication. So I honestly believe we have progressed far much better than the past two decades, and I'm an example of it.
So, Prof, coming to you and within academia, is that a similar story, or do you actually get to make decisions in your space?
So I think that, as I said just now, because we've got quite a female-dominated statistics community in South Africa, we are taken seriously. But I think that doesn't just fall in your lap. I think you have to, as a leader, instill trust in the people around you. You've got to lead by example. You've got to do the hard work. If you're going to get into that position because you knew someone or you got there or just because they wanted a female there, then the trust is not there. If you've earned it and you've got your trust and everyone believes in you, then they will take you seriously. And I think that's the crux of it.
But women say that women leaders tend to kick down the ladder and they don't necessarily help other women progress in the workplace. What's been your experience, Laureate?
I'm also in the middle or lukewarm with regard to that one, but I have, you know, in my career, 50% of my line managers or bosses or heads of departments were either male or female. But yes, I did experience the past, you know, recent my career, you know, with female leaders, where there was some not, you know, the support that you expected, not the treatment that you expected, you know, where you are treated harsh, where you're sabotaged, where you're intimidated. I had experienced that with female leaders.
So when you say the treatment you expected, what did you expect? And did you have that same expectation of a male leader?
Yes, I have, you know, when I see a leader or a person who rely on to take the vision of the organization forward, where you want to trust and follow, you don't see a female or a male, in my view. It has to be a person who is motivating, who's visionary, who's going to make sure that the people follows them, who's ethical in terms of conduct, and then also exerting what my panel member said now, you know, be the tone at the top. Whether you are a male or a female, be the tone at the top. The followers want you to be an example and follow you and play within your vision, and then you'll achieve. You know,
you know, and Queen Shamim said something about women in supporting roles, and then we look at that and we say, well, look at us, we've transformed in this organization because we have so many females, but those females hold no real power in the organization.
I think my experience or my observation is different. I think that the policies that are there right now, as she said, that we have progressed as a country, we have moved, we're no longer where we used to be. So we're seeing that most of the women that are in positions are actually given the power to make decisions, because when you're in the boardroom, you are not seen, or when you are CEO, you are not a woman CEO, you are a CEO. Therefore, you are given that power. You do have the authority to have your voice heard. So in the boardroom, it's preparation and bringing in facts, but also being authentic, because women have a way of bringing in the nurturing, the nature of nurturing, and also taking care of others. It's embedded in us as women.
So when then why do so many women complain that they don't feel that. They don't see that in organizational culture, where it doesn't cascade. You're talking the talk, but women complain that at the bottom, that is not their reality. And they have that expectation of female leaders that they will transform the workplace so that it does take into cognizance some of the needs of female workers. But they say, you guys are not doing that. And are you rather inward looking at the top, focusing on where you are in that point in time, without necessarily empowering women who are lower down in the organization? Shamim?
I think that's a very good question. And, you know, just on that and what you said earlier about kicking down the ladder once you're at the top. When I moved back to South Africa recently, I reached out to senior females in the industry, you know, just saying, you know, this is my background, this is my experience, do you know anyone that would be, you know, interested, etc. I got zero response. So, you know, and this wasn't one female, it was many. I got zero response. Even when I met them, you know, at events face to face, and I was like, oh, you know, I contacted you. Oh yeah, I'll respond, yeah, I'll introduce you to people. Nothing. Because when they get to the top, that's it. They don't want any other females to succeed, because to them it's like, you're gonna come and take over, you know, my position kind of thing. So that's how I've experienced it. But from myself as a leader, I wanna empower the younger woman in the business. I want to empower not just the graduates, but the people that are already in the industry, in your company. I want to empower them and make them understand, look, if I manage to get to where I am, you can do it as well. And give them the ability, the opportunity to bring them up through the ranks, because that's what we need. We've made it through a lot of hard work and through decades of change and transformation, but we're not perfect. We're not there yet. And private is different to public. So it's about empowering the younger females that are in the industry. And I think one of my panel members mentioned mentorship earlier. That is so important. That is something I believe in and have done throughout my career, is mentor younger analysts coming into the industry, mentor younger females who are in mining, because that is important. Give them someone they can turn to talk to, motivate them, inspire them. I think for me, leadership is about inspiring, motivating, empowering, and leading by example. And that leading by example from the front is doing the hard work so that everyone can see that you're doing it, and then they follow.
So there's an interesting thread that has run through here where you touch on this notion of being insecure as leaders. But it leads to the next question then. Who are you comfortable empowering as female leaders? Is it people lower down? Is it people immediately below you? Because are you insecure as a leader? Prof?
So personally, no, but I don't think that would be true everywhere. I've also had an experience like my panel member here with an insecure leader, you know. Something that I was thinking about while my panel was also contributing now was that I think what happens on the ladder up is that, you know, women are naturally hard workers. We're efficient. We're good at juggling. There are obviously some men as well, but I think it's a natural woman characteristic to be like that. And I found what happened, and I've had lots of conversations with our stats community, is that the woman, if you're in a more junior position, because you're so organized, you end up getting the job. You know, if something has to be done, the women will do it. And then the women are actually the ones that are maybe being overloaded and burning out. And then when an opportunity comes where you say, won't you come and step up and take a leadership position? They're so tired. And they're just sort of like, you know, actually, I just want to breathe. So, and even if we as a mentor go and help those women, we would also want to first ask the woman to do it.
Okay, but isn't that an indictment on female leadership? Because you've been there and you know what happens at that level. So why haven't you changed the culture?
Absolutely. I think that's where we need to focus. We have to, as leaders, we need to try and make sure that we're actually supporting. We're not just overloading or feel like we're just giving opportunities. It must be real support.
So let's talk to that.
Yes.
How are you transforming your organization, knowing what you know, knowing what you've experienced on your way to the top, and what women have to contend with?
For me, it's to be collaborative. Yes, I'm sitting there in the position, but I don't have all the answers, and I can't speak for everyone. I have to go down and speak to the women, invite them to the table. I always say to them, come to the table, don't sit back, speak up, tell me what is it that you feel that needs to change. And I think when there is strategies that needs to be discussed, you engage with your counterparts or your managers, either below you, even further down.
But I'm going to interject there, because these are the power dynamics that we always talk about. You can't expect a junior employee. It's all good and well, as bosses always say, I have an open door policy. But what does that mean? Do you really expect someone lower down to have the freedom to come up to the CEO's office, the CFO's office, the MD's office, and have a conversation about the struggles that she's having? Have you created enough of a safe space for people to feel like they can come to you?
Yes, I have. I go to them. In fact, I do go to them, and I also have one-on-ones with them. For instance, have coffees, have those informal discussions with them, so that, because I know that it's not easy. And you are correct, Sakina, that you can't easily just walk into, as much as the door is open, you find that no one is walking in. Then I have to leave the office and go to them and say, okay, what's happening? Go to their desk. What are you going through? How can I assist you? And that creates that, it bridges that gap wherein they can be able to approach you and they don't see you as being higher up there. So I think it's being authentic and being able to go down and create an opportunity and a safe space for them to speak.
A safe space, Laureate, to tell you the things that you don't want to hear. How open are you to hearing that?
Yes, I mean, every organization must have some tools and mechanisms of, we sometimes call whistleblowing, anonymous, channels. But you also have regular employee engagement sessions, as a leader. It can be monthly. You can even decide, depending on the situation at the time, you can even decide to do it weekly. Rare sessions where, employees are just going to talk, and whether it's complaints, whether it's something that you cannot put on a grievance, but you just want your leader to hear, and it becomes input to refining your tools. It becomes input to also refining your policies. I mean,
But how do you measure the effectiveness of that? How do you measure whether people are actually, telling the truth that they want to tell, or whether they are just going through the motions with you in this tick box exercise because the manager has to have a session with us every week and we must be there and we must say something, so we're going through the motions? How do you actually measure that this is authentic?
Yes. Sometimes, and I will go back to the dual role that we're expected to play as women leaders, You have to look beyond, because how genuine are the concerns? If you have all the frameworks in place, the policies that you are applying across the board without any bias for women and female, and you have oversight and follow-up mechanisms, you have performance management system, you reward accordingly, there's no discrimination. So what can be the complaint all about?
Those are serious touch phrases there that we're going to come back to. We're going to come back to it.
Look beyond.
I tell you what, we need to take another break, but do let us know your thoughts as well. Send us your questions if you have any, or some of your thoughts that you'd like us to incorporate here at Morning Live SABC.
All right. right, welcome back, everybody. We're going to go back to Sakina in just a short while. We just wanted to get up one or two of your messages before we do that. So let's put them up on the screen. And thank you so much to all of you that have been sending those messages through. And remember, the question was basically centered around women leadership and how you think we can better this. So here's one from Jethro. Jethro saying, morning, ladies. Everyone believes that they have to be represented and that must happen overnight. Surely the woman who fought for women's equity didn't expect it to just be handed over. Yes, women need representation, but they need to earn it, and it takes time to change. And this is from saying, I hope, while women deserve to be given opportunities in leadership roles, mostly have proven that they can be difficult to work with. They become defensive and authoritarian. Example, the former Minister of Higher Education. Surveys show that women prefer to work under a male boss than women. It's a big problem. It's a big problem and something we've been speaking about for a while. I know Sakina looked a little bit shocked when I said to her that I tend to agree that unfortunately it is, but you've heard from all of your panelists. They understand what it's like, but I like the line of questioning. What are you doing about it? Now that you're in a powerful position, how do you change that? Sakina, let me hand it back to you, and it's nice to get your guests as well to see what the viewers are saying.
And thanks so much, Leanne, and welcome back to the panel discussion. And thanks so much for all of those messages and engaging in the conversation, because it is a very important one. And just to remind you of our panel once more, Shamim Mansour, Chief Investment Officer at Mantengu Ltd. Then Queen Munyai is the Chief Executive Officer, Consumer Goods and Services Ombud. Lauriette Sissoko is the GE, Commercial and Business Development at AXA Airports Company South Africa, and we also have Professor Inga Fabrice Rotelli, who's Associate Professor, Department of Statistics at the University of Pretoria. And we have been having such lovely discussions, both on and off air, because we couldn't stop the discussion off air, because these are the real issues that we are grappling with. And, you know, I want to move to the pay parity discussion, because when we talk about women's issues, you know, you look at the Beijing conference, for example, and what was said there. One of the declarations of the Beijing Women's Conference, this was back in 1995. So back then it was said that there needs to be an ensurement of women's equal access to economic resources, including land, credit, science and technology, vocational training, information, communication, and markets as a means to further the advancement and the empowerment of women and girls. Now, we're still discussing these matters, and I think our panel perfectly constituted to touch on each of these points. But I want us to talk about whether women get remunerated the same. And I am going to make it personal in your respective organizations as their male counterparts. Shamim, let me start with you.
I think in my career, definitely men get paid more than women. Definitely my counterparts get paid more than me. It's a sad reality and a sad fact.
But what do we do about it?
I mean, you address the issue, you bring it up, you talk about it, but it's up to, obviously, the CEOs to decide how to change that. So we can raise it. I've raised it in my career, but it's up to the people at the top to make the change, and those have generally been the males.
And I want to quickly hop over to Lauriette, because, you know, you spoke about how in your organization there are, you know, you actually have good women representation at the top. So in terms of the pay gap, how is it looking?
Well, I was taught early enough
after my studies that salaries and benefits of every individual remains confidential. So I will never know. But what I can tell you is that I do my own benchmark. Industry, certain graded positions, certain levels, I know exactly where they should sit in terms of the benchmark, in terms of the market. And then when I enter the job market or I get a new opportunity, I negotiate the package according to that.
But what about everyone else in the organization?
Yes, in the organization as well. I think for my company now, AXA, I mean, we have a very transparent and inclusive reward and recognition system. And that reward and recognition system pay you for performance. And then, so you can't cheat it. There are oversight and monitoring mechanisms and frameworks and tools that will make sure that whatever you contributed to the organization, you're going to be rewarded accordingly. We have a performance management system where you enter into goals, you enter into performance indicators, you are measured accordingly. So you have little room to really say you have not been rewarded or have not been rewarded according to your performance.
Let me ask
those
this.
frameworks are there.
Your predecessor, were they male or female?
My predecessor was a female.
And
you know where I was working? You remember, it's not long
Yes.
that I'm with AXA now. I'm coming from Transnet.
so even there,
Yes.
when you came in, did you have to accept what your predecessor was paid?
I didn't know how much what my predecessor was paid, as I'm saying, but I knew for that position specifically what was the market asking based on the benchmark.
But
and I will negotiate according to that. And obviously when I go to a new position, it can be below what I was getting from the previous one.
But you see, and I can see people screaming at the TV saying, you see, that is the problem. You should know, who is getting paid what in your organization. Because if you don't know, then the status quo is perpetuated. How are you going to change it if you don't know what is actually going on? Prof?
Yeah, I agree 100%. So we've, as you said, it remains confidential. We've had these conversations so much, you shouldn't know. And if colleagues talk about it, then it's like, why are you talking about it? And I understand maybe it's a personal thing, but I do think in order for it to be corrected, we have to know what everyone's earning.
No. Why is it personal? Why is it personal? We are all doing a job in this organization. Why should it be private what one person earns vis-a-vis another? Isn't this a way of making sure that some do get paid more than others, even though they may not be deserving?
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%. I think to say that it's personal is an excuse. And I think the other thing that women experience is that, so I agree with my colleague here, we all sort of, we must hit the KPIs and then you get rewarded accordingly. However, women have kids. We have a period in our life where we don't work or we're on maternity leave. So we automatically lose years of experience. And then to say that we can never catch up. So if you slowly getting an increase, but there was a 2-year period, 3-year period where you didn't work or you can't catch up. And maybe that's where the unfairness also sort of pops in. Queen?
Okay, I want to chip in, and I'm going to differ a little bit with my colleagues that I don't think the pays are confidential because, okay, I'll speak from the environment where I am, and I think that even in the industry, the positions are usually graded, as you spoke about grading of positions, and there's benchmark of the similar, and those benchmarks take a lot of issues into consideration. For instance, in our case, we would look at the fact that the CGSO is a non-profit organization, so there is a market for NPOs, there's a market for profit-making organizations. And for executives, I mean, salaries are out there. It's in the public domain because in the financials, those that are publishing, the financials are there, they're out there. But internally, the grading, it's transparent. Everybody knows what grade your job is. Even when you are applying for the role, usually that role, when it gets advertised, there's a pay that is already published there? At
Are
what
we
level?
apologetic as women? Are we apologetic about talking money? Because a man would walk in and say, you know, this is what I think I'm worth, this is what I want to be paid to do this job, to be the CEO of McCafe Ltd.
Yes,
And as women, you walk in there, you say, they've benchmarked, this is what I'm expected, I'm expecting to be paid. So we're being apologetic about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, well, you know, in the companies I've worked in, there's no benchmark. So you come in and you expect, we all know it's market salaries and you expect that, but then there's always excuses, you know, we don't pay market at this stage, you know, times are tough. Mining is, you know, there's always that excuse, times are tough. In the future we will. But then you find on the male, it's always mark to market. When you're hiring a new male, there's never that talk times are tough. It's always, no, at this level you get paid this salary. And then you think, but oh, well, when I was hired, it was times are tough, we can't pay market.
Now, do you see why other women would give you flack as women at the top? Because if you don't know that Utabo is getting paid more than I am in the same position, how are you going to change that?
No, we should.
And there's an expectation that you would bring about the sort of changes that women would like to see, but it's not happening. Laureate?
No, I needed to give an example, you know, my personal experience. When after I finished my articles, very early in my career, I joined this entity without mentioning the name, a large organization, and I did my own fact-finding. I obviously accepted the salary. It was after articles, it's training, so you don't get anything, but you want to. And I'm answering a question of, are we apologetic or are we just accepting what we are given? You know, I had to do a motivation. I did my own fact finding. I had to go and consult, had to put facts together for motivating for my salary to be adjusted up. So I started there. It was very, very early in my career. So we're not being apologetic. And I want to come to this thing of saying, yes, you will know the bands and the benchmark and the grading, but they will never be the same. There's always a midpoint, there's a maximum and the medium. So you will never be the same. Based on your experience, based on when you came with how much, maybe for an increase can only cap up to 25%, not 50%. You know, those kind of things are taken into consideration. So there will never be a point when you are executives, you'll be at the same salary scale because of those dynamics. And then those are acceptable market dynamics in terms of best practice. So
what about those lower down on the organizational organogram? How do you deal with those positions?
The same. You entrench the same principle. That is why I'm saying the tools that you have in organization, make sure that you are transparent, you communicate them, everybody knows the rules, but then you apply them consistently without bias. And then it has to be for all the levels. It can't just be for executives. You have to go to you know, whatever level, even bargaining unit levels. You have to apply them consistently.
One of the other things we don't talk about, of course, is there are women and then there are women. Because let's not shy away from the fact that race also plays a part here.
Oh, yes.
Because as black women, you are at the bottom of that rung, right at the bottom, and there's no getting away from it. So how do we navigate these sort of things in the workplace as well, as leaders, women in leadership positions? Because I would imagine that you are aware of that, you know, and how do you navigate? Shamin, to make sure, because what companies have become adept at, they actually make sure that they budget to pay fines for not meeting employment equity targets. You know what I'm talking about. Companies budget to pay the fines because they know they are not going to transform, they are not going to meet those employment equity targets. What do we do?
Well, again, many, many years ago, I worked for a large corporation in South Africa, and when you say they budget for fines, that's what they did. They just, we're not going to ever meet those targets, we're not interested, and they literally would budget for those fines. But at Mantengu, we're a young entrepreneurial company, and I think we don't look at color. You know, for us, it's about who you are and your experience and what you can bring to the table, you know, whatever level. So I don't believe we look at color. And I mean, when you talk about black women, I'm brown. I'm even lower on that scale. So when I moved back to this country, that was even a big barrier, because I was told when I apply for things, no, we're looking for a black female. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a black female. I grew up in apartheid. And they're like, no, 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 you're not black. We're looking for African. And I was like,
in particular.
Yeah. So there's also that. But I think at our company, we don't look at color, which is the good and the important thing.
Yeah, so we also don't look at color because we have policies. And I think maybe to add on what she's saying, that it's not entirely, and I heard earlier when you're saying that it's up to the CEO to change. It's not, you know, dependent entirely on me as the CEO to make those decisions, because there's a board of directors. There are policies that guides that. As a CEO, you can go there and propose what you are proposing based on what you are seeing on the ground or what you want to see, but it requires the board's approval to that, looking into other aspects which play out into that, not only without favor or without any fear, but looking at the facts. So
what are you saying about the boards of directors of these companies? Is that where the barrier comes into transformation? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying it's part of the system that is there, because I believe that the diversity at board level will then help to deal with that, because we also have women. The representation, if I look at my own board, obviously there's a slight imbalance there because of a lot of challenges. Maybe when you go out, when you advertise, depends who responds, who meets the requirements. So women on the seat, I think, should advocate and use their voice to advocate for change.
Laureate?
Yeah, I think it happens mostly, the question you asked, it happens mostly in private sector. You know, in public sector, state-owned enterprise, you follow the legal prescripts to the letter. I mean, you have an employment equity, you are supposed to be submitting the compliance reports with regard to those prescripts. You have the BE regulations, you have the PFMAs and all that. So it is one of the mandatory requirements.
But there are complaints about the private public sector as well, in terms of colored people in particular, in terms of them being absorbed into employment within the public sector. There's a complaint there. So in as much as perhaps not to the extent that we see it in the private sector, but the public sector as well has its own challenges.
No, I think there has to be some policy reforms, you know, for compliance with the legal prescript, because it is there. Employment Equity Act is there. It needs to be complied with. And then, you know, if you did not comply maybe from the beginning, put some plans, you know, to show that you are working towards making sure that you comply.
So I think we experience this a lot in academia as well. There's limited individuals that are available when we advertise a position, and we also have employment equity in place, but we struggle to find the people to fill the positions. And the only way to sort of rectify that is to mentor, find the people, mentor, and they're not going to appear out of nowhere. And I think we have a huge responsibility as women to be doing that, to mentor and grow the people so that we can put them in these positions and effect transformation.
And speaking of, do you actually have the time to mentor people? You know, how important is that to each of you as we wrap this up? And I'm going to give each of you just a minute to talk to that, and also your message to young women who are watching this morning. What would you like to say to them? You know, and what piece of advice would you like to give to them? You have a minute for all of that.
My advice to the young women out there is believe in yourself, go out and achieve the unthinkable. You can break those glass ceilings, you can break down those barriers, and don't let anyone tell you that you can't do that. In terms of mentorship, that's, like I said before, that's very important to me, and I will always do my utmost to mentor females at any level, even males. It doesn't matter. I think mentoring them and helping them, when I came into the industry, there was no mentorship. It was sink or swim. If I can now use my knowledge and experience and help bring up other females or males, I would love to do that.
Queen?
Yeah, for the younger women, I would say that your dream is valid. Don't limit yourself. Go for it. Whatever that you think you wanna follow, go for it. It is possible. In terms of mentorship, for me, I had to start a foundation, mentorship foundation, some few years ago to help do that. Do I have time? Not enough time that I would like to have. I think it's a bit of a challenge that I'm still working on, but I use every opportunity to mentor, whether it's at church, whether it's outside the home, whether at home. I always want to find girls that I can, lift as I rise. Every opportunity that I take, but I need to make, it requires more time. So yes, that is one of the things that I think can be done. Continue to advocate and also, coach other people whenever there's a need. Where you see a need, chip in and mentor. Yeah.
I think coming to mentorship, because of our positions, you won't always have the capacity and time. So you need to put an official program, officialize it, sign a contract where you're going to want to see the results of that mentorship and executive coaching. That's what I was offered as an opportunity during my career. So that's what I will advocate for in every organization. A message to young women, I'll use a simple 5 why. First, understand what is it that you want in life. Do you have a vision? Do you have a clear, plan of where you want to go? When do you want to reach those goals? How are you going to reach them? Dissect the steps. Seek support, whether it's financial resources, whether it's consulting, whether it's talking to who, seek that support, and then put a plan in place you will achieve. But also I want to say to young women stepping in careers and wanting to advance to executive levels, they must know that there are written rules and unwritten rules in the workplace. The unwritten rules are the ones that makes us fail, as women particularly. Meet your deadlines, don't want to be reminded. Come to work on Monday and Friday, please. Don't have a trend of always, taking a long weekend. So those are the things. Distance yourself from social cliques and corridors and gossip. Your line manager wants you to come to them with ideas, with innovation. When you want to see me, don't come and tell someone this and this and that. So that will be my message to the young people. Thank you.
Thanks. So I think academia is a teaching environment. And you could be a teacher or you could be a lecturer. And I think academia is a really lovely environment to really be a mentor, not just teach someone knowledge, but actually mentor them and help them. And I think if you make it a personal story, then you're winning. Message to the young women in our country, I always say choose a career based on what you enjoy doing, not just because that position looks nice or etc. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, you're not going to be able to work hard, you're not going to succeed, you're not going to outdo the men around you. That's it.
And thank you so much to our fabulous panel this morning. And, from what you've all just said, it goes to show that representation actually matters, not just in principle, but in power, in terms of what you do. So thank you so much to our wonderful panel this morning. Shamim Mansour, who's the Chief Investment Officer at Mantengu Limited. Queen Munyai is the Chief Executive Officer of the Consumer Goods and Service Ombud. Lauriette Sissoko is the GE for Commercial and Business Development at AXA. And of course, Professor Inga Fabrice Rotelli, Associate Professor, Department of Statistics at the University of Pretoria. And thank you so much to everybody who watched and engaged this morning. It's been absolutely fabulous. And remember, keep pushing and make sure that you ask yourself the relevant questions and take the advice from our panel this morning. How badly do you want it? For me, that's always the question that's going to determine how far you take it. And with that, it's back to studio. But thanks so much to everybody. And of course, not forgetting McDonald's and SABC News for making this annual annual panel discussion a reality during Women's Month here on Morning Live. Back to studio.